And we meet again. Hello. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Man, the weeks are going faster and faster from my perspective anyway. But I'll be honest, even though I want to have good energy and I want to be focused on what we've got going on today, I'm a little bit distracted and a little frustrated because of some technical difficulties that we've been trying to work out and just haven't been able to fix them. And you know what happens inevitably in my brain when I start to fret or worry about something, especially something like this, which right now I can't control. And all it's going to do is distract me from the task at hand, which is doing a show not only worthy of you tuning in, but also worthy of my own high standards and those of Rogue Media Network. As I start to worry about little things sometimes, I am grateful that God reminds me that my heart kind of kicks in. And what I always come back to, especially on a day like this one, where it feels like the entire world is mourning Dolly Parton, I'm reminded that it's not life or death. It's YouTube, it's entertainment, it's going to be okay in the grand scheme of life and what really matters. And as I say, it's especially poignant on this day because the last 24 hours have been filled with people mourning what seemed to be a universally loved woman that we all have stories about or memories of or can share impressions of how she impacted our lives. And so, yeah, even today, as I start the show and I'm fretting a little bit about some problems that are confounding us technically, I'm reminded that it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. However, I do want it to be as technically sound as possible. And I certainly do want it to be an enjoyable experience for those of you who show up live to watch or those of you who watch after the fact on our YouTube channel or the various podcast platforms. So we will continue to work out kinks as we move through week 4 of the show, All In with Amy Lawrence. And we're glad to connect with you. It's kind of neat to see, while numbers don't measure the impact or the reach of the show completely, it is really neat to see that more and more people are finding the show and finding the channel. And certainly with Zach and I working hard over this first month, getting ready for football season, that is gratifying. And so thank you. I know we already have people who are showing up in our live stream comment section, and we're glad to have you with us there. We've got an early guest on the show, and he's terrific. If you've not heard my conversations with him in the past, you're going to really appreciate Greg Bell. He is a man who has many skills and talents, and this is really his second career, if you will, covering the Seattle Seahawks, who are the defending Super Bowl champions, but also writing for the News Tribune like he does. It's really his second stage in his professional career. So if you want to follow him, we'll make an opportunity. It's at G Bell Seattle where you can find him online, but we'll make sure we have his credentials up on screen and we'll let you know how you can find him. And granted, once you hear this conversation, you will want to follow him. He's not only funny with his dry sense of humor and he's got a great perspective, but also I really appreciate the fact that he's gracious with his time. And whenever I reach out, he always says yes. So we're excited to have Greg Bell on the show from the Pacific Northwest, even as the Seahawks get ready to launch defense of that Super Bowl championship. And you know what? When it comes to defending champions, as much as it's nice and it gives you some cachet, it also puts a bullseye on your back. And I like to say, you can't relax with your ring. It doesn't work in pro sports because no one's intimidated by your ring. Everyone's trying to knock you off the top of that mountain. Everyone wants to get to where you are as the Seahawks. And we know there have been significant changes for the Seahawks, not to mention Hard Knocks. It's been a Hard Knock circus around the Seahawks too. So I'm interested to hear Greg's perspective on what it's been like to cover a training camp and a preseason with the Hard Knocks cameras everywhere, and what he's heard from players and coaches about the Hard Knocks process. So Greg will join us about 15 minutes from now. So I have to stay on time and I have to make sure that I get to our break when we're supposed to. We do have the opportunity about an hour and 15 minutes from now for you to ask Amy anything. That's part of our hump show, part of our hump day process. And if you haven't seen the new art, we put it together after the show last week. You can find it on our various social media platforms. As I'm looking down, you can see them there. Whether it's online at A-Law Radio, on Twix, or on Facebook, or then our Insta and our TikTok, we're working to make sure those are higher quality than what they've been to this point. So again, part of the technical challenge of doing everything online, and a lot of this stuff is out of my area of expertise. I've gotten better at social media, better at videos, certainly better at trying to navigate the various ways that we connect with you. But yeah, it's not something that comes naturally to me. And I don't have all the technical expertise to make these things work or to even answer my own questions. So I'm grateful to Corey, who's our boss at Rogue Media Network, as well as Zach, and then Mike, who's our creative director, because they're helping me to navigate some of these fixes that I want to make. And I do have a really high standard, so I also need to have some patience to go along with it. So again, good morning to you. Glad to have you with us. As I mentioned, it's kind of blown me away that no matter who you see or hear from in the last 24 hours, when it comes to Dolly Parton, I have not heard one negative thing said about her. Instead, people from all over the country and actually all over the world are lamenting her loss. And I've gone, like many of you, gone on to YouTube and found live performances that she did of some of the songs that are recognizable to me, some of the songs that made an impact on me as a kid, but also later into adulthood. And it really does break my heart that she's gone. And not only her, but in remembering her and some of the favorite songs and favorite moments of Dolly Parton's career, for me personally, I can't help but think of Kenny Rogers, who I also was so sad about when he passed away suddenly, and Whitney Houston. I mean, that goes back a few years, but of course, there will forever be a tie between Dolly and Whitney because of the song I Will Always Love You, that was written originally by Dolly Parton going back to the 70s. I didn't realize she had written it so far back, but she wrote that song and then she recorded it, and she had a version with Vince Gill. But the movie The Bodyguard, which was a blockbuster and featured Whitney's version of I Will Always Love You, that's what made the song mainstream and obviously reached a whole new audience that maybe had not been as familiar with Dolly Parton's role in making that song a hit. So even as I was going back over the past 24 hours and watching some of her duets from live recordings with Kenny Rogers and the song Islands in the Stream, which is the one that I grew up with, and I'll explain that coming up. But to see the moment at the Grammys where it was Whitney Houston accepting an award that was presented by Dolly Parton on stage. Wow. Boy, did that hit me in the heart. And the fact that Dolly was only 80 years old, and I know she hadn't been feeling well because she'd canceled a series of concerts that she was supposed to do in Las Vegas going back to the end of last year. And she had put out some videos in which she indicated that she was struggling with her health a little bit. But this did still catch people off guard outside of her family. So you might have seen the video by now, the one that her nephew recorded. It's emotional, it's powerful, it's personal. And he says in this video that Dolly had asked him to be the one to share the news with the world whenever she passed away, not expecting that it might be this soon. And he indicated that she was still working up until the very end. And so I went on to her social media and saw a video that she recorded 6 weeks ago in which she was promoting and previewing what is to be later this year, and I don't know the status of it now, but a Broadway show about her life. I mean, her life is one of those that had taken many twists and turns, but such incredible depth to her story, where she came from, where she started, and how she built a life and a legacy and a career that reached all corners of the globe. And just to underscore that fact, not only is she now being beloved and remembered here in the United States, but I shared this video on my own social at A-Law Radio in which the Royal Guard out in front of Buckingham Palace, they were playing one of her songs this morning, or maybe it was yesterday, but I saw it this morning to honor her. They were actually playing the instrumental from 9 to 5 out in front of Buckingham Palace. And so she's one of those figures and one of those people, larger than life, who had projects and impacts in so many different arenas and so many different industries, whether it was Dollywood, whether it was her imagination library in which she made children's books available online for free, whether it was her humanitarian giving and not just money, but time, giving and generosity. And she had lost her husband of 50 something years going back not that long ago. And according to some of what I've read now, she's really not been in great health since then. So I can imagine, as much as it sounds hokey to say a broken heart can really affect our health, there are certainly stories of how human beings, they just don't feel the same and aren't the same, and they go downhill physically after losing someone that they spent so much of their lives with. So I don't know much more about why she passed away, only that it's really hit people around the United States very hard. And I'll tell you a couple of my own ties to Dolly Parton, the reason why I know her and why I feel like I grew up with her. So going back to the days when I was a kid in Georgia, this would have been first grade, second grade, that area, that time of my life. And we did live in Georgia for a short time. My mom, before she was a teacher, was a geologist. And so she worked on dam projects. And we were in Georgia for a project that she was part of. And I remember we had a record player. And my mom had a record collection. I don't remember a lot of what was in there, but I do know that for a while we had records. And when I was a kid, I was allowed to pick. So Zach helped me on this one. I know there were different sizes for the LPs. The small ones, were they the 32s? Shoot, do you remember?
33s, I think.
33s. Okay, so the small ones, not the ones that would cover the entire turnstile, but just just the small ones. So I had one that I remember. My mom didn't allow me to listen to a lot of secular music. She was protective, and I appreciate that. It's fine. So I wasn't allowed to listen to pop music much when I was in high school. I would sneak sometimes Madonna on my radio because I was a big fan of Madonna when I was in high school. Anyway, I remember I had this LP, this 33. It was a small one. And on one side was Sheena Easton's, oh shoot, what is the name of the song? Morning Train. So Sheena Easton's Morning Train was on one side.
I'm going to correct this, actually. They're EPs. I looked it up. The ones, the 7 to 10 inch, are EPs.
Okay. All right. See, I feel like a lot of our audience might not have any idea what I'm talking about, but I'm glad that you do. Thank you. And some of you do, of course, because I know some of you are either my age, my generation, or older. So if you remember just the small little EPs, and I had one on, like I said, one of them, and on one side of it was Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. And because it was really the only record that my mom would allow me to have, there might have been some children's records in there too, but the only one that I was allowed to listen to, and I cherished and treasured my little album. And I knew the words to Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 by heart. And of course, at that time, I had no idea what that was about, other than just you worked from 9 to 5, but I didn't get the nuance of the song. And I didn't get that in many cases, it was her making a statement for women and the fact that women and their ideas and what they brought to the table in the corporate boardroom should not be taken for granted. I didn't get any of that. I do now as a female who spent much of my career in an industry that is dominated by men. And so I just knew that I loved that song. It was catchy and I would play it in my room over and over and over and over again. So that was really my first memory of Dolly Parton, going back to when I was a first or second grader. And I will admit that I had one friend who I would spend a lot of time with, and she and I would at times dress up. I don't recall that we had ginormous blonde wigs, but I do recall that we would dress up and we would wear my mom's high heels and we would strut around the room with our brushes as our microphones and we would sing Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. Another significant memory or significant stream that runs through my life is when my mom married my stepdad. He was a huge Kenny Rogers fan. And so we would take road trips and we would listen to, now these were cassette tapes at this point, we would listen to Kenny Rogers music nonstop. Now, I guess in some cases that might cause a child to rebel and hate the music. And there was a lot of his country music that I did not enjoy. I later became more of a pop country music fan. So Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, Shania Twain, Garth Brooks, that kind of stuff. He listened to older country and a lot of it made me want to stick a fork in my eye. However, at that age, and again, this would have been preteen, I really, really loved listening to Kenny Rogers. So whenever we had to go on a road trip, or as we called them, rides, my brother and I, we used to really, we would make fun of the rides, but we would really dread getting in the car and just driving all day. As a kid, that's not really what you wanted to be doing. But my mom and my stepdad at the time, they really enjoyed just getting out and seeing everything that New England had to offer. And so we would go on these rides and the music would be playing the entire time. And if I was ever allowed to ask for a particular type of music, I would always ask for Kenny Rogers. And so the Kenny Rogers song with Dolly Parton, Islands in the Stream, is one that I knew well. And so I not only knew every single word to that one, but I would sing it over and over. And even yesterday, after finding out about Dolly Parton's passing, I went and I watched some videos of Kenny and Dolly singing together and actually came upon another one going back to 2017 when there was a farewell tribute concert to Kenny Rogers, and Dolly Parton, she came out on stage and she sang to him, "I Will Always Love You." So that made me fairly emotional because Kenny Rogers is one of my favorites and really part of my soundtrack of my childhood. And Dolly Parton certainly is in that stream as well. And so that song I knew by heart too. And then, of course, the "I Will Always Love You" and the fact that she performed it everywhere she went. And as much as I loved the Whitney Houston version, Whitney's one of my all-time favorite artists. And goodness, when I listen to her music still, my heart hurts sometimes about the fact that she's gone and that her life ended so soon. It just that tie as well. And then there are a couple more recent Dolly songs that I loved. One of them, which I listened to again this morning, the duet that she did with Brad Paisley, which is very poignant and even more powerful now because it's a song about getting to heaven. The song is called "When I Get Where I'm Going," and Brad and Dolly sang it together, but the video that goes along with the song, because he's really singing about being reunited with his grandfather and how much he misses his granddad. And so at the end of the video, there's a video clip of his granddad talking, but also throughout the video, there are still shots of humans from all walks of life holding photos of the loved ones that they miss, the loved ones who've passed away, the loved ones that they will see again when they get to heaven. So that song is very emotional anyway. But at the end of the video too, Dolly is there holding a picture of someone that she loved. Now, this song is prior to her losing her husband, so I believe it was her father. But that song, even more powerful now. And then there's one more that I actually shared with my husband this morning, a more recent duet even that I saw her on an award show perform with Zach Williams. And then there is a recording, their song There Was Jesus. And if you've never heard it, it's, again, really powerful. Dolly's contributions, her harmonies, her voice woven in with Zach's the entire time. There's a great video of the two of them singing that together. And even as recently as just a few years ago, she was still recording new music. Actually, my husband showed me a video of her collaborating with Motley Crue. It was for charity. And so she loved to duet with other artists, even outside the country music realm. But how about this? The fact that pretty much every other artist out there would love to collaborate and did collaborate over the course of her career with Dolly Parton speaks volumes of her appeal to the masses. And like I say, so often we agree on nothing in this world except for football and dogs. I think I have to amend that now to we agree on nothing in the United States of America except for football, dogs, and Dolly Parton. So if you have a favorite Dolly Parton song, I would love to see your comments over on the live stream. We definitely can highlight those as we head through this edition of the show. But as I told you, I was going to get out on time. I didn't. And so now I'm running a little bit behind. Zach, you tell me, do we need to take a break or can we welcome in our guest without a break?
We can take a break if you want to. He's still not here right now.
Oh, okay, fine. Good. All right, let's take our quick break and we will come back and we'll talk about world champion Seahawks and how they defend their title and what may be the toughest division in the NFL. Thanks for joining us on this hump day. All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Providence. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us in our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
Glad to have you with us on this hump day, this Wednesday, even as we talk about what feels like the entire country mourning who was a universal icon in Dolly Parton. As we head through this next hour, send your questions for Ask Amy Anything, because we'll get to that coming up on our second hour. But I'm really excited to welcome our next guest. He is fresh off covering the Super Bowl champion Seahawks, but man, right back into the training camp and preseason mode. Greg Bell, one of my favorites, always from my radio career, and now get to see your face. This is great. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Amy. That's great to hear from you. And you are all Texas, the ads in Waco, and you are Southern Texas. You're in it.
I'm still getting adjusted, to be sure. I tell you what, I don't know how many years, if we live here, that I'll ever be adjusted to 109. I saw 109 degrees on the temperature gauge in my car over the weekend.
It was 79 in Seattle yesterday. Thank you.
All right. Can we accidentally cut him off? I think we have some technical difficulties.
Hey, Amy, it's great that you started by talking about Dolly Parton. What a legend she was. That's one of the favorite people in my wife's life. She told me for years about her and all she did, and the books, and the 320 million books donated to children. And I mean, she grew up dirt poor in East Tennessee. And now that she's passed, we learn even more about her, that the doctor who delivered Dolly Parton in 1946 was paid by her family with a bag of oats because they didn't have money to pay the doctor. She lived in a 2-room cabin that had no electricity and no running water. Then when she grew to this icon across the world, during COVID, she gave everybody in her hometown $1,000 a month for the entire year that COVID shut down Tennessee. And then the last month of that was $5,000. She spent $9 million on the people of her small hometown during COVID. There are people in the world, and then there's Dolly Parton.
You're right. And I was just telling the audience, too, that I feel like there's not one person who said a bad word about her. We don't agree on a lot in this country. We agree on the NFL, and we apparently agree on Dolly Parton. It's amazing because a lot of people who grow up really poor tend not to be as generous because they remember that. And so they keep everything they have, but not her. She gave away so much and impacted so many people. So I appreciate you sharing those. I had not heard that about her hometown during COVID, but the fact that it was sudden like this, I don't know if it makes it easier, but only 80 years old. Goodness, there was so much more that she could have done. But even now that she's passed, there's so much more that her legacy will mean to people as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Greg. So as we talk about the Seahawks, I'm excited to talk about the roster, but I got to ask first, though, Hard Knocks being at training camp and part of the preseason, how much does that change? What is the typical routine on a daily basis?
It is different. And sometimes, Amy, I think they're performative for the cameras and the boom mics because they are everywhere. They're in the locker room. They're in the huddles during practice. They have robotic cameras in Mike McDonald and John Schneider's office. John Schneider, the GM, Mike McDonald, the coach. And we've seen those in the episodes. I mean, they even have the camera and the boom mics in the training room in the stadium in Nashville Sunday night when Bud Clark broke his ankle. And one thing to consider, my son, 23 years old, was a college soccer player and athlete. He's really into sports as well. He was watching it with me last night, and he said, "Why did they do that, Dad? Why do they have to have the cameras showing the FaceTime call with Bud Clark's fiance and toddler?" And I thought that was a little intrusive as well, but it tells a story and it's visual. One thing to consider is the Seahawks get a chance to view these episodes about 36 hours before they air. And they do have the right to cut out or say, "Nah, we just don't want this out there," or "This is a little too review." So it's not like the Seahawks didn't know or didn't approve everything you've seen in all 4 of these episodes. And that's true of every one of these. Of course, what makes this unique, this is the first time in 25 years Hard Knocks has covered a defending Super Bowl champion. Up until just a couple of years ago, the league rule was if you made the playoffs, you were exempt from possibly being on Hard Knocks in training camp. They changed that rule a couple of years ago. And in fact, next year, it'll be New England, the team that the Seahawks played in Super Bowl 60, that'll be on the Hard Knocks in 2027 for training camp. So I think it lends a different lens into an NFL team when it's doing one, not that's rebuilding or has a new coach or is trying to compete in the league after down years, but one that's at the top and trying to stay there. I think one other thing, Amy, it's shown, is I've known it from covering him for now 3 years every day. Mike Macdonald is an exquisite leader, and the leadership things that he does and the vulnerabilities that he should, he's a son of a West Point graduate. And as you can see, I was a West Point graduate as well. Something every day that I saw and heard and learned at West Point or in the Army Officer's Manual. Every day I see an example of leadership. And that's because it comes from Mike Macdonald's dad, a class of 71 West Point grad. But what I never learned at West Point, and I figured out once I became an active duty officer in the Army, was the empathy piece and the vulnerability piece. And for leadership to come full circle and have the effect that Mike Macdonald's obviously has had on the Seahawks, you need a leader who's vulnerable and empathetic. And I thought the scene last night of him talking about his mentor in O.J. Brignac from the Baltimore Ravens, who passed away after a fight of 19 years with ALS, really poignant scene of Mike. That was Mike Macdonald. And he's like that all the time with those guys. And he asked that they be just as vulnerable. Amy, they canceled team meetings and game weeks during the season in the playoffs and just say, instead of doing X's and O's of the game plan or working on the overfronts, we're going to talk about your why. Leonard Williams, tell us your why. Why did you come here? Why did you play football? How did you get here? And Leonard Williams stood up and said, what? Okay, we're preparing for the NFC title game. You want me to tell you why? And he taught him about how he was homeless for a time in Daytona Beach, Florida, at Maitland High School, and how a former Maitland High School coach in Florida had gotten a job at USC, and that is how he got a scholarship to USC. He became an All-American, he became a first-round pick, and now he's made $170 million in his career. That's Leonard Williams at the top. You go all the way down to the 53rd guy on the roster, and they take these walk and talks around the facility talking about their why. Hey, what was the highlight of your summer? Hey, what have you learned about being a father? And that's what they talk about. And that's the vulnerability, empathy piece that the Seahawks say is the reason they won the Super Bowl last year, because of their togetherness. It wasn't that they had the top-ranked defense in the NFL. It wasn't that Sam Darnold was clutch and Kenneth Walker ran wild in the playoffs. It was because of the togetherness that they think, the unique culture that Mike Macdonald's built. I think the world and the country on national television is starting to get a glimpse of that.
It's interesting that you say that, because so often we talk about chemistry, Greg, and there's really no formula, no tried and true formula to get to chemistry, but often it does come back to relationships. It comes back to, and you would know this because, as you mentioned, you served in the military, you care more about the guy on your left and the guy on your right than you do about your own personal goals. And you are brothers with the men that you serve with, or the men in the locker room. And it sounds like Mike Macdonald's figured out a way to underscore relationship and caring about each other beyond what happens on the football field. Wow.
Yeah, it's one thing to do it in the military because the art of war, and that's a life or death situation, and you figure out really quickly if you can't depend on the guy next to you, it could be in your life. In the NFL, it's every man for himself, because the earning power can end in a play, as we saw in the Hard Knocks episode last night. This is a brutal sport with a short lifespan, the average lifespan of 3.2 years for any player. And so those guys always try to grab theirs when they can get it. And it is a very me, and it should be, because there are 27, 28-year-old guys whose NFL careers have ended. And yeah, they made a decent amount of money when they played, but then it stops. And they know that. That's a constant concern of theirs. I was a Major League Baseball beat writer for a few years before I became an NFL writer 20-some years ago. And the difference between Major League Baseball and NFL is night and day because of guaranteed contracts. And the relative lack of guaranteed contracts and guaranteed money in the NFL beyond the year you're in is overriding everything about an NFL player. And Mike Macdonald has broken through that and gotten out of the me, and my contracts and built this togetherness in just 2 short seasons. That's his greatest accomplishment. It's not that he has the number 1 defense in the NFL. It's not how he's used Nick Emanwari and Devin Witherspoon It's not all his innovations on defense and vexing Kyle Shanahan, less so Sean McVay, but it is his culture he's established in a very what's in it for me environment of professional sport. It's, as someone who's been trained in leadership and knew, once I learned he was West Point's father was a West Point graduate, I knew some of it was coming. It's fascinating for me to see how he's employed it in the buy-in, how 100% the buy-in's been.
Although I have to say, one of my favorite clips from Hard Knocks so far is, and I don't remember which D lineman it was, when he kicked him out of practice because he wouldn't stop going closer to the quarterback.
Derek Hall.
Okay, so Derek, he kind of bites back at him and, drops a few choice words. And what do you mean? I'm supposed to be doing this. And Mike drops, well, turns out I run this bleep in practice. So he also has that toughness. Guys know that he is the leader. He's the one that sets the rules. So that was pretty impressive too. And I loved so there was another moment where the training staff or the athletic training staff had asked that they were holding out. You can't see me. I've got my arms out. They were doing the hammers, and they had to keep the hammers up in the air as long as they could in the meeting room. And the whole place is going crazy cheering for one versus the other. It was neat too to see that. So yeah, some of these clips, even if they feel more contrived, it's neat to go behind the scenes and kind of be a little part of what they're doing to get ready. And as you talk about their defense, world-class, they did lose Bud Clark. So I know that was a tough moment for them, this rookie safety. How does this defense compare? How is it different than what they had in February when they were the world champs?
Well, the biggest differences are that the first, their defensive line's older, of course. Now you've got a 34-year-old DeMarcus Lawrence and a 32-year-old Leonard Williams and a 32-year-old Jaron Reed. And history and precedent in NFL, you just don't play great forever. When does that cliff approach for their productivity in their career? I don't see evidence that it's there yet for those three players I just mentioned, but it's coming eventually. And the Seahawks are trying to exact another top flight year out of all three of those guys entering their mid-30s. The other thing is the third cornerback, Reek Woolen's departure is showing up every day here. He's now, of course, with the Philadelphia Eagles. They let him go. He signed a one-year, $12 million deal. The coaching staff would have liked to have Woolen back. The football operations side and John Schneider, the GM side, didn't think they had the money and the resources they wanted to throw at Woolen to keep him. But now they have a third cornerback situation. They don't like what they tried to start training camp with. Nehemiah Pritchett, an unproven middle-round draft pick from Auburn 3 years ago. Noah Igbenogany, a former starter with the Washington Commanders and a Miami Dolphins first-round pick, has gotten some time as a third corner. Why are we talking about the third cornerback well, in Mike Macdonald's scheme, that's a starter. Nobody ran in a league that is very sub-packaged. Nobody ran 5 and 6 defensive backs more than Mike Macdonald. Now, a large reason that is because of Nick Emanwori and how great he was. But the fact they don't have a trusted third quarterback is why they've even gone into the Terrion Arnold Waters while he's facing 8 felonies in Florida. It's why they're signing Trevon Diggs, who nobody else wanted, and he's been on the street since January when the Packers cut him, and he hasn't had a full season. Diggs hasn't since 2022 with the Cowboys. Yeah, he's a former All-Pro, but he's had multiple knee injuries, serious ones, a concussion because a TV fell on his face in his house during last season. He's had all kinds of stuff, and that's why he was available. They're trying to ramp Diggs up to see if he can be the third corner with Devin Witherspoon and Josh Jobe. They chose Josh Jobe over Woolen. They kept Jobe on a 3-year deal with $8 million a year while letting Woolen go for $12 million in 1 year to the Eagles. But we'll see if that catches up with them as much as they use sub-packages. The other noticeable thing, the most noticeable thing about the defense this summer compared to last season, Amy, Nick Emanwori hasn't been in it. The arthroscopic surgery, ankle surgery last month, from the Super Bowl week that he sprained his ankle. He is back in cleats running, but he's not practicing yet. He's not in Jersey. I'd say it's 50-50 that he plays in the opener. They're still expecting him to, but I also think they maybe expected him to be a little further along than it's 2 weeks now until they play the Patriots in week 1. But Nick Emanwori is the everything to this defense. McDonald does all he does in multiplicity and blitzing and coverage schemes and disguises, largely because of Nick Emanwori and how he employs him as a hybrid linebacker. They need him back. And every game they miss without him, they're far less of a defense than they were last season.
Feels like a good time to ask about the Seahawks and the NFC West. So the group as a whole, last year, the Niners were missing so many pieces and still ended up winning 12 games. And so it's a really competitive division, notwithstanding the Cardinals. We'll see what happens there with the new regime. But how do you feel like this division maybe has changed or the balance of power has shifted based on what we've seen this offseason?
Well, of course, everyone's annoyed at the Rams already. Why are we even having a season? Because the Rams have already won the Super Bowl. That's happened. How many years have we seen that? Whoever wins the offseason wins the Super Bowl. That's not always what happens. There's a lot of things that happen between March and the following February. But no doubt, the Rams addressed what their biggest needs were, and that's in defense and particularly the defensive secondary. Aaron Donald seems to just be smart enough not to come in during August because the games start in September. So he'll sign and make that. That will be formidable as well. But I will tell you, Amy, that the Seahawks noticed in that Myles Garrett trade between the Rams and the Browns, Jared Verse leaving for Cleveland. They spent a lot of time the last couple of years, their offensive coaches game planning on how to handle Verse, and he was a problem for them. He often lived in the Seahawks backfield. And I'm not saying that they think it's going to be a picnic with Myles Garrett, but that's a big part of that trade that Rams lost that the Seahawks noticed. The 49ers, when they are healthy, they have proven they are a playoff team that can win the division. But the healthy part is George Kittle coming back. Now there's doubt whether he'll be available week 1 or not. Is Fred Warner all the way back from a major injury? Trent Williams is going on 40 years old as their left tackle. Christian McCaffrey, the injury concerns for that team. I mean, injuries are the thing in the NFL. And as soon as you're injured, you're done with key positions. And that's what the 49ers have been beset by. I had a friend who was covering the 49ers a couple of weeks ago, went into their training camp, and 23 dudes couldn't practice in one day. You can say substation or whatever you want. The fact is, if they don't have the horses on the field, the Niners can't compete with the Rams and the Seahawks. I think if the 49ers stay healthy, it's a 3-team race. If they have any of those injuries catch up or stay with them, Seahawks, Rams, Christmas night in Week 18 should decide the NFC West, should decide again the top seed in the conference. Seattle's history is when they get a top seed in the playoffs, they go to the Super Bowl. It's only happened 3 times, and all 3 times they made the Super Bowl.
Greg, I remember you and I speaking before the Super Bowl. I believe it was a Sirius XM show. We were talking about the future of Kenneth Walker. And at the time, you were saying it's such a unique situation because he is going to be an unrestricted free agent. So he ends up, of course, not returning to Seattle and now with the Chiefs. And he had taken on more responsibility because of some other injuries in that backfield. But how does the offense look without Kenneth Walker in that backfield?
Yeah, you nailed it, Amy. The offense without Walker is the biggest question mark. A team that wants to run 50% of the time and lead the league in running and rush rate. They brought in Brian Fleury, the former tight ends coach from San Francisco, who has never called offensive plays in his career. He's a Shanahan disciple in the outside zone scheme, which is why they brought him in to be the Clint Kubiak extension from last year. But they don't have the lead running back anymore. The guy that they thought was going to be his replacement, the guy that had a job share all of last season with Kenneth Walker was Zach Charbonnet, and we saw him get hurt in the divisional playoffs. He's still not back. He's on the physically unable to perform list. He only had his reconstructive surgery in February. We all know that's usually an 8 to 12-month recovery, which would mean mid-October. He's going to start the season on the physically unable to perform list, which means he'll miss the first 4 weeks with games, and that'll be into October. So big questions, which is why they drafted Jadarian Price in the first round. Price himself has had leg issues during training camp. They've now put him under bubble wrap. He's not going to get a preseason snap. He's going to go straight to the opener. In fact, all 22 of the Seahawks starters on offense and defense will not play a snap this preseason and go straight to the opener without playing since the Super Bowl. They're relying a lot on Price. It's Price in a third-year former undrafted rookie George Halani, and then a potpourri of dudes behind him.
Wow.
They had Emmanuel Wilson from Green Bay, a 500-yard rusher last year. He's been out for the last 2 weeks with a hamstring issue. They like him as a short yardage back, but they're going to rely a lot on Price, Amy. Price was a backup at Notre Dame to Jeremiah Love, so he hasn't had a lot of third down reps and pass catching reps and all the things that most top first-round running backs would already have at a major college level. So it's a little bit of a dice roll. They like what they've seen with Price, how quick he is and decisive in the outside zone scheme. He's ramping up in the pass game. He's got to improve his pass catching and pass blocking especially. But Yeah, it's going to be a lot on price for this offense to function as it's supposed to. They still have Smith and Jigba. They still have Cup. They now re-signed Rashid Shaheed. Torrey Horton's been beset again by injuries. The first-round pick that should show much promise last year. A.J. Barner is going to be a breakout guy, I think, in this offense because he has now as a tight ends coach, as his play caller. And I'm seeing Brian Fleury sending tight ends further down the field this preseason than we saw all last year under Kubiak. But if Price isn't what they think he is as a first-round pick, this offense is going to be different. I will say one more thing about the offense, Amy. People don't realize the Seahawks won the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold leading the league in turnovers last regular season. Now, he didn't turn the ball over at all in the playoffs, which is why they rolled on offense. But if he even cuts down his turnovers from, say, 20-some to, say, 15, how much more efficient this offense is going to be. That's his job, is to – not all those were his mistakes, but it is the ball in his hand. He can't turn it over like that.
I'm glad you brought up Jackson, though, JSN. I was going to ask you because he had a breakout year, a career year, really set the tone and set the standard for the rest of the wide receivers in the league. And obviously, it was Sam Darnold who was getting him the ball, so they had quite a connection. But where does he go from there after the season that was?
Well, only 7 dudes have had a season better than 1,793 yards, 120 catches, and all the touchdowns. So going up, I mean, if he goes up from there, he's reaching Jerry Rice type stuff. So it's unrealistic to think he's going to have 1,793 yards again, especially because Rashid Shaheed has a full offseason in this offense and a full offseason with Darnold. Remember, Shaheed came from the Saints in the trade in early November and just had to merge into traffic midstream. And Darnold wasn't used to his speed. He often underthrew him. We saw in the NFC Championship game, 2 minutes into the game, it would have been a 75-yard touchdown, but Darnold underthrew him for a 50-yard gain because Shaheed had to wait on it. They worked a lot in the offseason, Shaheed and Darnold together away from the Seahawks down in Southern California, training at Saddleback Junior College in Mission Viejo. They are much more in sync than they were last year. So I think that means Shaheed's going to get a lot more of the targets that JSN got some last year. And I mentioned the more use of the tight ends down the field. They're going to throw to A.J. Barner a lot. They're going to throw to Jadarian Price and the running backs a lot in this offense with Brian Fleury. Think San Francisco 49ers because that's what they're going to run. So they're not going to throw 70 times a game. So those targets that JSN got last year are going to go elsewhere this year, it would seem, based on what I've seen in training camp. That doesn't mean Smith and Jigba won't be a huge impact player and a number one priority to every defensive game plan when they play Seattle.
So before I let you go, it's still a surprise to a lot of people that Seattle is the team that ended up on top. And obviously, a lot of different factors and moments along the way. Seattle took advantage, the leadership, all the personnel we've talked about. But as you look back on last season, Greg, what are a few moments that it kind of hits you? Wow, this team could really make some noise, or wow, this team actually has the potential to shock the world, if you will.
2. One was in November in Inglewood. Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions. He was throwing it right to Rams. I mean, just late. It was almost like it was a kid in the backyard that needed to get sent home and go home to mom because you're not even in this game. and yet it was 21-19 with a minute left. They're backed up on their own 1-yard line with one timeout, and Darnold drove them down the field in position for a game-winning field goal. It was 61 yards, and Jason Myers missed it by a yard or two short and wide. But on that drive and after that game, in the Seahawks locker room, the guys were talking about, whoa, this Sam Darnold dude's a dog. 4 interceptions, a career high, and he kept us within striking distance of almost winning that game. We should have been blown off the field. That was the game that Ernest Jones in the press conference, is now Seattle lore up here, said, anyone who has a problem with my quarterback, F you. And he said it live with the cameras rolling. And he said it when Sam Darnold was waiting in the wings right next to me in the press conference room. And when Ernest Jones left the press conference and Sam Darnold was coming in, Jones looked at him and said, I got you. We got you. And at that moment, I said, they got buy-in if they love a quarterback who just throw 4 picks against their chief rival. That was on offense. And then on defense, on week 18, in the night game at San Francisco, that was for all the marbles, for the division title, for the number 1 seed, the Seahawks absolutely throttled Shanahan's offense to the point that Mike McDonald went for it on 4th and 3 or something from the 5-yard line on the first drive, which almost every coach in the league would kick a field goal. He went for it and he didn't get it. But when he went for it in the first quarter on 4th and 3 from the 5, Amy, I said to myself, it's because he knows the 49ers can't drive the field 95 yards for a score. He knows his defense is so good in this game, they're not going to touch him. And in fact, the 49ers got 3 points that night. And that's a playoff team. They on the road, on their home field, they beat with 13-3, playing rope-a-dope with their defense. And that to me said, well, this is a complete team. A buy-in with the quarterback and the defense that can win games on the road with a division title and number 1 seed at stake. They played the Super Bowl in much the same way, just rope-a-doping on offense, don't turn it over, and let the defense throttle the Patriots, and that's exactly what happened. That to me is when I do this. Okay, they're going to win the Super Bowl. And for the Seahawks, 10 of those 11 starters are back on defense.
And that is kind of the mic drop for the Seahawks. As much as that division is really stacked and every season's different, they still do have the benefit of familiarity and understanding that this is the team, for the most part, that did win a Super Bowl. And so we should be able to start from a position of strength. We're dealing from a position of strength. I love it. So much fun. Well, it's great to see you, Greg, because obviously we've been doing this for years.
At like 2 a.m. Eastern time, too. The sun's up. What's going on here? Amy Lawrence with the sun up? I was like,
well, let me just tell you, it's taken some getting used to for me too. It's about 180 degrees from what I did for almost 20 years. However, if an old dog can learn new tricks like me, well, then there's hope. So it's great to talk to you. Thank you so much for a couple of minutes. And of course, we'll check in again sometime down the road.
Anytime. Enjoy, Texan, new transplanted Texan.
Right. My thanks to Greg. He's so good. And as I tell him sometimes, every single occasion that we have him on shows, I learn from him. So I learned so much. I mean, we're talking about Dolly Parton to start, and he shares a story from her past that I had not heard. So it's amazing. And he's like an encyclopedia. Seriously, it's not like he's sitting there reading from notes. This guy is just, he is able to process everything he sees. And of course, his career now is entrenched with those Seahawks. So his perspectives, but also his observations and his knowledge are such great assets whenever we have him on the show. So that's awesome. Really kind of makes you think, though, about that Seahawks run game and the offense that they want to run and how they became champions a year ago. So much of what they did offensively was about running the ball, controlling the ball, because when you control the ball, you control the game. And that's very often what the Seahawks were able to do. And of course, it took some pressure off Sam Darnold as well. So some big time I don't know why I was about to spell it. Some big time question marks about the Seahawks out of the gate, but I mean, that's the name of the game, especially when you're a champion. All right, we've got about a half hour or so until you can hear your questions answered here as a part of Ask Amy Anything. So send them to our chat over on the side. You can also pose them on our social media. It's great to connect with you. I love the questions. I've seen a few of them that crack me up. I did put out there on social, I have no idea who's going to win the Super Bowl. So definitely do not ask. But it's kind of neat that we can reinstall this favorite feature and favorite element from all my years doing After Hours, and we can bring it to light, literally here in the daytime. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on this hump day. All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity third event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional tree company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Wow, Zach, I am really impressed with your new music that you've inserted into our playlist. Pretty sweet. Speaking of music, I was asking Corey and I was asking Zach too. We were kind of throwing the question out there of could we play clips from YouTube of Dolly Parton performances or even just play some of her music behind us on the show because we want to pay tribute to her as well. And what my boss said to me after Googling it, there are a lot of people that are asking the same thing, as you can imagine. Many of them probably eschewing the rules or restrictions when it comes to the rights and copyright issues and just playing the music. But I don't want to do that because I don't want our stream to get shut down. But it's okay with me if a bunch of other shows get shut down today and you are left with ours. But what Corey found out, my boss, is that the option is there to play a video without audio and then I could just sing it myself. Or this is also a suggestion from AI. I could just sing a Dolly Parton song on my own and essentially cover it here on the show. And that would not be a copyright violation. What it would do is cause all of you to go running for the hills. So we're not going to do that. In lieu of that, I'd love to hear from you on our comments section here during the live stream, or if you want to weigh in on social media, you can share a favorite Dolly Parton song or moment or story, because it is true. I have to amend my longtime signature statement that we agree on nothing in this country but the NFL, dogs, and now the lovable and universal icon, and one that will be greatly missed in Dolly Parton. She truly is a one of a kind. There will never be another Dolly Parton for a variety of reasons. I always appreciated her humor. And I will say there were times where I thought, whoa, I would never say that. At times, she used some innuendos and she would also make fun of herself. She never shied away from talking about her past or where she came from or the fact that she thought, those gigantic wigs that many people would have called trashy, or the hair and the makeup and the clothing. She thought that was beautiful. And so she was comfortable in her own skin, and she was unabashedly Dolly Parton. She didn't try to be someone else. And her life is such a testimony to not just grace and joy, but also generosity and giving. And the fact that she always had so much fun and that she had a quick wit and ready humor, that stands out to me too on this day, as so many people are remembering the great Dolly Parton. So we'll go a little past the top of the hour just because Greg was generous enough with his time to give us a little extra. And that is one of the things I love about this format, is that I can, in fact, blow through the top of the hour and potentially end the first hour at 2 or 3 minutes past, as opposed to straight up. When I was doing Sirius XM NFL radio on Monday, I had to remember, man, there's a hard out, meaning the computer cuts you off. If you're in the middle of a word, too bad, too late. Zip it. Whereas on YouTube here, it's not quite like that. And one of the stories that I saw that I wanted to make sure we mentioned, because as much as you may not be a Chiefs fan, though I know Elmer joins us every day during the live stream, and he is very much a Chiefs fan, there are, oh gosh, maybe 1 or 2 people on this entire planet of ours who would tell you, and could somehow pull it off with a straight face, that the NFL is better without Patrick Mahomes. That's bunk. It's garbage. Patrick Mahomes not only brings incredible attention to the NFL and is a terrific ambassador for the NFL because he's a father, he's a husband, he's funny, he's a businessman. He went to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding, whatever. I mean, this is a guy who's well-rounded, but also is extremely likable. He's got the Kermit the Frog voice, which is fun. Want to talk about recognizable. His shock of hair and his story about being the son of a professional baseball player and kind of growing up in locker rooms and clubhouses. Again, he's universally likable, but it's his game that is so dazzling and so entertaining that even if you're not a Chiefs fan, a lot of times you don't want to miss what Patrick Mahomes might do on the field. Well, we know that the Chiefs are coming off their first really awful year in quite a while, where now many of their games, in fact, before they were eliminated from playoff contention in December, many of their games came down to a single score. And whereas in the years where they were winning the AFC championship and they were competing for Super Bowls and often winning Super Bowls, those games would go in favor of the Chiefs. Yeah, that didn't happen last year. I don't believe in luck, so I wouldn't tell you it was luck. Just that teams are no longer intimidated by the Chiefs. And of course, they get every team's best shot. But also, around the AFC, especially in the West Division, they've figured out different ways to defend against the Chiefs and try to contain what it is that the Chiefs do so well. Another factor, it seems like every single offseason, the Chiefs change that roster of receivers or weapons in the backfield around Patrick Mahomes. And so there's just a lot of factors that went into it. But the games that would typically go their way, that they could pull a rabbit out of the hat or snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, those games did not go their way in 2025. And Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL ACL and LCL going back to December. He had the surgery right away, and he was cleared in late July for all football activities during camp. Now, we've heard from Andy Reid that Patrick will not take snaps in their final preseason weekend. So in essence, he's not going to play in the preseason, but he's pretty excited about the fact that he's able to play football again. And he offered an update on Tuesday at practice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I haven't missed any reps, getting to go out there day after day and kind of have the grind of the camp, I mean, that could even be harder than the season, of just wear and tear on your body and going back out there and doing it again the next day. And so it's been awesome for me to be able to go out there and do that. Exciting. I didn't know if I was going to have to take days off and stuff like that, but my body's responded the right way. And so haven't had to miss anything other than the preseason games. But even for those, I'm going through the warm-up process, trying to make myself prepared. And so I just don't get the one series or whatever it would be. But other than that, I've done every single rep.
He goes on to say, honestly, the more we practice, the better I feel. And it so often happens for athletes who've really not ever suffered a serious injury, guys who are always the starter. And, in case of Patrick Mahomes, this is a guy that we've watched through college, of course, and now on into a, record-setting NFL career. To have to sit and watch is different and tougher for these guys, especially when he's fast twitch and he wants to be out there all the time. Even when it's a blowout. Patrick Mahomes never wants to come off the field. Peyton Manning was like that. Tom Brady was like that. Well, he did say too that he feels great and that it's been really a confidence boost for him to be able to go out there and do a lot of these football activities. And they'll even say to him, the coaches or some of his teammates will say to him, hey, why don't we just tamp it down a bit? Why don't we calm down a little bit? But he says, that's not where I am. I want to go out there and I want to win every snap, even in practice. And he went on to say too, and other guys have said about him that he can feel a different intensity as he comes off this injury, but also because the Chiefs were eliminated from playoff contention in December. When was the last time you could say that? Well, not during Patrick Mahomes' tenure as starter. That you can be sure of. So I can't wait to see him back on the field. It's one of the storylines that's got me all jazzed up, but also a question mark about what will we see from him? Will he have the same escapability? Will he be as confident in some of the cuts or some of the ways that he would duck under defense and extend plays? He always has felt like a magician, so creative when he's on the move and stuff that he doesn't even think about, right? I mean, he's practiced it. And so it's second nature to him. It's instincts to him. But the way that he performs when the pressure is on, it seems like he raises his bar. And I mean, as I say, there are very few people who with a straight face could tell you that the NFL is better without a Patrick Mahomes who seems to pull something new out of his butt every single time he's on the field. So I'm looking forward to it. He is on track to start week 1 for the Chiefs. At A-Law Radio, you can also throw up your questions on our Facebook page, After Hours with Amy Lawrence. It's our hump day. It is your chance to ask Amy anything now, 15 minutes away. Glad to have you with us this middle show of the work week. It's All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated with style and durability. You can trust Tervis tumblers to keep your drinks the perfect temperature, hot or cold, for hours. From the classic insulated tumblers to sleek stainless steel water bottles, each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
It's our hump show, middle show of the work week. Glad to have you with us. Whether you watch live, whether you catch the YouTube show or the clips later on, my goodness, the traffic on our shorts, those short, no, every time I say that, I think of the actual shorts I'm wearing. No, meaning the short videos. It's just that the cool kids call them shorts. Actually, the cool kids call them subs instead of subscribers. And the cool kids also call them vids. Actually, producer Jay, who I worked with at CBS Sports Radio and Infinity Sports Network, he was the one that got me started on vids. Anyway, I don't think that I'm that cool, but I want to at least speak the language. Speaking of that, it's funny. Have you ever seen that video it makes the round on social media of Peyton Manning with his daughter? And I believe his daughter is middle school or high school, at least when this video was made. And she throws different phrases out at him that kids say or that young people use. And he has to try to decipher what the meaning. And sometimes her reaction is hysterical because it's clear he's wrong. He's just taking a stab in the dark. And she doesn't actually tell him what it means. She just makes a face and says no and moves on to the next one. Anyway, typical teenage daughter, even if you are one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And that triggered something else in my brain. Did you know that, I think it was Sunday, but don't quote me on that his son, Marshall Manning, actually made his national TV debut and got into a game for his high school for a couple of snaps. I believe he's a freshman, so he's not the starter. And he's not like his cousin Arch Manning yet, in which there is a ton of expectation around him already. He's very early in his high school career, but he is a quarterback, and he did get in. He completed a pass, and then he handed off, and then he was out of the game. And according to his coach, the quotes I read from his coach, they do want to get Marshall some snaps in every game. They're preparing him for his opportunity when he takes over at quarterback. It's funny to kind of take myself out of NFL mode and think about it like high school. But it's big business in the state of Tennessee, as it is in the state of Texas and other places in the Southwest and the Midwest. And so, yeah, he's actually begun his football career. And so two Peyton Manning kid stories right there. But yeah, I at least try not to be completely naive or sound like I'm embarrassing myself when it comes to some of the terminology that is used. But I will be honest, there are times when a phrase comes up on social, I have no idea what it means. And so I have to go and I look it up. I guess that's one positive use for AI. And there's a lot of things that you don't expect to encounter, whether it be in your business life or your personal life, and the internet can be handy. Well, I'll tell you what, the SEC is going through a bit of a transformation now and kind of emergency reaction to this whole, what's been a firestorm over athletes who now have gained another year of eligibility. And so they're coming from the pro ranks and going back to school, which gives back to school week a whole new meaning. Well, we know based on Lane Kiffin's interviews, and we shared his perspective on this whole deal with the athlete Daquan Wright, who did clear waivers, by the way, in the NFL and is theoretically going to join the LSU Tigers now, except that the SEC has weighed in with some very strict and pointed regulations that would bar athletes who intend to go from the pro ranks back to college. So this happened very quickly, and it was unanimous by the various SEC member schools, of which there are 16, and that includes LSU. So again, I don't know what happens moving forward, but according to Pete Thamel, who's the ESPN insider, the vote was 16-0. So the conference leaders, the SEC leaders, and this is presidents, it's athletic directors, it's also chancellors, that each school was on board with implementing regulations right away that would bar, even in their own conference with some of their member schools, that would bar athletes returning from the pro ranks to college. And it's not just about, excuse me, I have an itch on my eye. It's not just about football. It's NFL, NBA, or the WNBA draft. Any athlete who previously declared for these drafts and did not withdraw at the right deadline or by the deadline, those athletes are no longer eligible to play in the SEC. If an athlete signed a contract with any professional football league, the NBA, the G League. Now, this would apply to RJ Lewis Jr., who also was a Big East Player of the Year at St. John's in 2025 and now wants to participate at LSU with his 5th year of eligibility. He would not be eligible because it was a G League team. And then you also have the last one there. If you've been listed on an NFL or professional football league roster or any of these other rosters, you're no longer eligible to play in college. And another piece of this is the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey. He has, quote, full authority to enforce these rules with penalties. Now, presumably, these are penalties that would be assessed to the schools or the athletic departments, not to the athlete themselves. They would just be ineligible. But the idea of trying to put a former pro athlete, I mean, I don't know if you would call Daquan Wright a pro athlete necessarily, since he never got into a regular season game. And that might be the same with Lewis. He never actually played in a regular season game, though he did play in the G League and he did play in some preseason games, but he was never on the court during the regular season. But according to their new bylaws that they're adopting now in the Southeastern Conference, Sankey is authorized to enforce this expectation with penalties against member institutions. And apparently, they're still working on the penalties, but I can imagine they might limit your ability to participate in conference championships. Maybe the penalty is loss of scholarships. I don't know. In these days of NIL and pay for play schemes, could it be about limiting the amount of money that you could pour into your athletic department, or fining your team so royally with such a huge penalty or a huge fine that now you don't have as much money to spend on your actual programs? But I don't know how this applies in the case of Daquan Wright, because he's the one that really set off this firestorm in the SEC. And because he's got an injunction, a temporary injunction from the court system in Baton Rouge, as does Lewis, that would allow them to participate. Now, the last I knew, LSU hadn't come out with any kind of a public response or public statement. And I don't know whether or not these athletes will now be allowed. Are you grandfathering them in because the because the new rules, the new stipulations that will come with some punishments and sanctions, because those weren't written until yesterday and adopted until Tuesday of this week, so August 25th, 2026, does that mean the court injunction allowing Wright and Lewis and other athletes to go back to school for a 5th year of eligibility despite their time dabbling in the pro ranks, Does it mean that they can now do it or they can't do it? I don't know. I don't think we have all the questions answered yet, but the SEC is not the only one. The Big Ten also unanimous in taking up this position where they're not allowing athletes to go from the pros back to college. And I know that you could argue, what's the harm? No harm, no foul. Wright and Lewis weren't active participants in a regular season on an NFL or NBA roster. However, because it opens up a can of worms, because the precedent is there, who's to say that you aren't going to get a guy, let's say he's a rookie, he was drafted, whether it be into the NFL or the WNBA. So the NFL's draft is in late April. The WNBA's draft is in May, I believe. So it's either late April, early May. And actually it comes on the heels of the Final Four. So it would be mid-April. Okay. So about the same time as the NFL draft, and the NBA draft is on the heels of the finals in June. It usually takes place third week or fourth week in June. So could you have athletes that were drafted who actually spent time, maybe they got hurt their rookie year, or maybe they didn't get as much playing time as they anticipated their rookie year, or maybe they were halfway through a season, did actually appear in some regular season games, but then got cut. This kind of stuff happens all the time. It's the business of sports when you're jostling roster spots and trying to address needs over the course of an ever-changing season. If one of those athletes were to sue for an extra year of eligibility and received it, well, then you would actually have a pro athlete who made money at the pro level going back to college. And the domino effect is, we talked about this on Tuesday, that you then see roster spots or scholarships in college gobbled up by guys or gals who've already participated at the pro level. The ACC, they've got meetings on Wednesday with their commissioner, Jim Phillips, probably going to adopt very similar rules or language or stipulations that would prevent this from becoming a streamline or really another option for athletes who maybe don't think they're going to make it at the pro level and have decided, well, I think I'll go back to college and grab some of that NIL money. So it's not a challenge that they ever expected to address this close to the college football season kicking off. And we'll see whether or not doors are slammed in LSU's face or whether LSU has to backpedal on giving Daquan Wright a spot on the roster. All of those questions are still to be answered, but the conference is very clearly stepping in even before these pro leagues step in. Gosh, a month ago, would you have anticipated that the conferences would be having emergency meetings for just this purpose? Straight ahead, your chance to ask Amy anything. It's our fourth week, so fourth time is a charm. We've got some new art and new posts up on our social media. Of course, you can send your questions into our live stream. I know producer Zach is monitoring the various ways that you all can reach us, and I'd love to know, as well as you're asking me questions, I'm asking you, what is your favorite Dolly Parton tune or your favorite Dolly Parton memory? Because it's clear that woman affected people of all walks of life and all shapes and sizes and ages and ethnicities. It's amazing how universally loved she was, and finding that out over the last 24 hours. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the Hump Day Hump Show. We're all in. I'm all in on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabin, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us in our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
At Matt Piffle, we believe in celebrating your journey, past, present, and future. Our unique personalized products are designed to boost your confidence, elevate creativity, and honor what matters most. From custom home decor to meaningful gifts, we help you cherish the memories that make you who you are. Visit mattpiffle.com and start celebrating your story today.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
We've been working on it. Can you tell? We've got new art and new music, and we're trying to add some different elements. But sometimes it's okay to go with old reliable and a staple that we've had for years, that I've had for years, that you've all gotten used to, and dress it up and bring it back. And that's where we are with Ask Amy Anything. And when I look back, and we've been doing this show for years, because I do like to really sink into and invest in a particular job. And I don't like to hop around as much anymore. So this is a new adventure. I want to be the best at it, which might take some time. But when I look back, I will know that we started Ask Amy Anything week number 1. So I see there are actually a few of your questions in the live chat. We've also got various social media sites that Zach has been perusing. But just to remind you, I'm not the one who picks the questions. The questions come from producer Zach as he's seeing what you've submitted. So we are ready to go. The voice god is ready to
my
go.
bad.
Oh, there you are.
Here we go. I'm here. There we go. I've been moving things around and doing it, but we are ready to go now. So the first one I found was actually on Facebook from Jeff, who wanted to know, what is the most controversial opinion that you have expressed on air, and what feedback did you get afterwards?
Goodness. The most controversial opinion. Well, it's not a more recent one, but I would say going back to so a couple of ones, one that blew up in my face and one that I feel very validated about. I remember when LeBron James was in Miami and he was about to make decision number 2. So remember, he left Cleveland, he went to Miami, they won the 2 rings there. And when he was getting ready to make his decision, I went on the air and was 100% certain. I said it for months. He's not going back to Cleveland. He's not going back to Cleveland. He's not going back to Cleveland. And of course, I put it out there on social media. I think I was probably a bit snarky when people would come at me with, oh, what do you think about LeBron going back to Cleveland? Well, I definitely had one of those old takes exposed for anybody who follows that Twitter account. I had to eat my words there because I was wrong. And as it turned out, he went back to Cleveland and he won a championship. And people kept reminding me of that from Cleveland for years, that I was so wrong that LeBron would not turn around and go back to Cleveland after having left 4 years before him. So that was one that blew up in my face. And I guess in retrospect, I learned that it should be always qualified as this is my opinion. I don't believe he should go back to Cleveland. And here's why. I was wrong. Another one that, and again, I feel much more validated now because the industry has grown so much when it comes to women. But I remember going back in my career, so early in my tenure at CBS Sports Radio, but going back to my days at ESPN Radio when I was the only regular female host and was talking about women talking football and the fact that there needed to be more women in sports talk. So for me, it was radio. Now, of course, it's both video and audio. And I remember writing a blog post in response to a San Francisco radio host, and he and I are friends now, so it's not like I hold a grudge, but he had gone on his show and talked about essentially how women don't belong in the sandbox, that women should get out of covering sports. They don't belong on the playground or in the sandbox with men covering football and covering men's sports. And I pushed back on that, and I wrote, actually, maybe I'll share it on social media because it's funny to think about it now, how much the industry has changed. But I wrote a blog post called My Sandbox in all capital letters with the my, just to emphasize the fact that I belonged here too. And I had fought to that point in my career. And I would say still, there are times where I know that I'm swimming upstream as a female. Now, there are a lot more women who are on TV talking sports, a lot more women who are covering teams as beat reporters or insiders. We see women, NFL Network is replete with some very accomplished and talented and smart and attractive women. And so it's much more common now. But still, I would say that sports talk radio and sports talk in general are much more male dominated, more of a vast wasteland, if you will, when it comes to women. And so I do look back on that and the fact that I had to fight for my piece of the pie, if you will, and I had to fight for my credibility. I no longer worry about that. I will tell you, though, there's one thing that I still struggle with being on camera every day, Zach, and that's for years. I wanted my career. I fought being on TV and I fought putting too much out there on social media with me doing videos, that kind of thing, because I never wanted it to be about what I looked like. My motto is role model, not supermodel. I wanted it to be more, my career to be more about my knowledge and my ability to share that, to speak, to connect, and of course to entertain. So this is definitely still an adjustment for me. But yeah, I feel very validated looking back that those controversial opinions about women belonging in the sports broadcasting industry and being part of covering the NFL or covering Major League Baseball. And I've been in locker rooms, I've been in clubhouses. I know that it's still predominantly men and that that's their space, but we belong there just as much as men do. And it's not so controversial anymore.
No, I think that's a great take and glad to see how obviously it's expanded and transformed with the way we cover sports. Another one that's less sports that I do have for you that's going to tickle the movie fancy for you, hopefully. What is your pick for Best Picture at the next Oscars?
Can I say Spider-Man? Okay, so I don't know whether or not it will win any Oscars, though I do think that some of the visual effects and the technical aspects, the editing, which those are Oscar categories, that those can be part of it as well. My husband and I really loved the new Spider-Man movie, and we loved seeing it in IMAX. I'm trying to think what else we've seen. You know what? We went and we saw Young Washington in theaters, and I thought that one was terrific as well. I have no idea if these will come up for Best Picture. Probably not. Doesn't it always seem to happen? And I don't know if there's anybody else out there that would agree to this, but it feels like the movies that I really love are never up for Oscars. Mm-hmm. And the ones that I've never seen or I really don't appeal to me, those are the ones that end up winning Best Picture. So I don't know if I've got popular choices, but I thought Young Washington was definitely worth seeing in the theaters. It told a part of George Washington's story that I'd not heard before. And Apparently it's really accurate. So I did look and research that. But also, why not Spider-Man? Anytime you've got a dude who's flying between buildings and taking the kind of pounding that he did, and the editing and the all the different components that come into putting together an action movie like that and making it so seamless, I feel like there should be an Oscar in Spider-Man's future.
There could be for the effects. I feel like they give away like effects.
Yes, special effects, visual effects. Yes.
Exactly. So it could
Or
be an
music.
Oscar winner. Exactly. Another one we got on the Facebook page from Eileen. If the WNBA was around after you played college, would you have liked to continue playing?
Well, because the WNBA is in fact celebrating year 30, it absolutely was around when I was playing college ball. I'm not that old, Eileen. But here's I'll take you back to a moment where I had to make a choice, and here's the choice that I made at the time. So I had known from 16 years old that what I wanted to do, my dream job, was to do NBA play-by-play. And I had to get started. And part of the challenge for a lot of students or young people who have radio and TV dreams is, how do you practice? How do you get reps? How do you get noticed? Well, I went from my undergrad at Messiah College, where I played college basketball, and then I went to Syracuse to get my master's. And there was an opportunity. I still had a year of eligibility. Not my 5th year, but actually my 4th year. I still had a year of eligibility, and I was tempted. I worked out with some of the Syracuse women's team. I would practice. I played pickup with them in the off season, and I got to know some of the members of the team at Syracuse. And I was so tempted to play, even if it was a walk-on spot and not a scholarship, though a scholarship would have been helpful because Syracuse education, that master's degree, was not cheap. But I came to this point, and I remember I wrestled with this, but I had to make a choice. Do I want to keep playing as much as I love playing? And I still sometimes miss it. Though golf kind of fills that whole competitive drive that I have, also running half marathons. So at least I've found some other ways to feed that competitive athletic gene that I have. But I had to choose, do I want to jumpstart my play-by-play career here? Because an opportunity came up. Instead of playing, I could do play-by-play with the campus radio station for the women's team. And so I started doing that. I sat in the stands a few times, and I did some audition tapes. And then the program director of that station gave me an opportunity to call games. Those were my very first reels, my very first tapes that I ever had of me doing play-by-play. And I used those to get jobs. And so as much as I miss playing, as much as I enjoyed every bit of being a college athlete, and even going back to high school and participating in 5 sports, I understand a little bit of why athletes have a hard time letting go and moving to the next phase of their lives, because I really missed it. I lamented it. But I understood that there was an opportunity for me to get some exposure as a play-by-play announcer, and also get a usable reel that I could then share to potential employers. And it actually helped me get a job, as I said. So I don't regret that decision, but yeah, it would have been fun to see whether or not there was a little more basketball in me, because I loved that game, and I really enjoyed the team aspect above all else.
No, I completely get that.
How old does she think I am?
I don't know. Like, that's what I was thinking too.
I'm
I was
joking.
doing the math as I was thinking. I was like, I don't think Amy's that old, but I'll just go ahead and ask.
That old. I like it. I don't think Amy's that old.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask another question before I say anything else. Jamie asked, and Sherry actually responded on Facebook to. He asked, will Matt and the Musher be on this year? And we had him on last week. You can check that out on our YouTube channel. But he also asked, how's producer Jay?
That is a great question. Producer Jay and I haven't connected since I left New Jersey. The last I knew about Jay, he was doing well. He was in a great relationship with a girl that he really loves. And he also was starting a brand new job. And it took Jay quite a while to find a job after leaving the overnight routine and leaving CBS Sports Radio. So the last I knew, he was doing really well. I will say that I've had him on my mind a bunch just as we start this new show, because he was always so into video and YouTube. It was really his baby. So I do need to reach out to him and send him some of the clips that he can laugh out loud. Like, for instance, when the dog threw up in the middle of our debut show. So I like I said, haven't talked to him in a year, but a year ago he was doing really well. And of course, still having fits of consternation over his beloved Mets and also his Giants. But I can imagine, maybe I'll reach out to him when the season starts. I can imagine he's over the moon about John Harbaugh taking over as the head coach of the Giants. Those are his two teams and always would crush his soul. He was also a Nets fan, so not a Knicks fan. So I can imagine seeing the Knicks win the NBA championship gave him fits too.
Two quick ones we have from the chat here that I can see, and this one's just really short for me. When you talked about the options for us with Dolly Parton about how you could potentially sing, and you said no. Ron asked, I cannot sing either, so I'll just add that in. It would be even worse. But the other question that we'll get to, and we've talked about it before, but we see your husband's painting on the wall. They want to ask if they can see yours again.
Nice. Okay, so I will make this promise because, and I'd mentioned this on yesterday's show, our young social media director, her name is Andrea. She's encouraging me to do other videos that don't come from clips of the show. So on our Instagram and TikTok, as we rebuild it, it's short videos. I always go back to what my niece Lauren said to me. TikTok is YouTube, only shorter videos, so you don't have to watch as long. Oh, okay. That sounds like doom scrolling to me, Laura. Anyway, it's much more of the short, digestible clips. And so Andrea has said to me, we need some behind the scenes video, short clips that I can put together and throw up on social media that kind of show you getting ready for the show, what your studio is like, maybe a little bit with your dogs, and how I have to kick them out of the studio every morning as we get ready to start. So I will promise you that before the end of the week, there will be a video that includes my version of that same painting. So that is my husband's painting, and he did a great job. Mine is supposed to look like that one. We were painting the same seascape, so it's supposed to look like that one. It doesn't. Our flowers are very different. Our beach is different as well, but I will show you that. So we'll say that's a way that you have to go and use our social. It's a way to drive traffic to our social because it will only be there on social media. But yes, by Friday, we'll have a behind the scenes look at what happens as I'm getting ready for the show, but also maybe explaining some of what's here on the shelf, because I know you can see what's back there. And some of you have asked about my Gracie Award and also my pictures of Penny. But because of the camera focusing on me, a lot of that is blurry. And so I actually do want to take you on a tour of the shelf that's here in studio. So yes, it's coming. Just, a little bit at a time, Zach, because I feel like 2 hours a day on video is a lot for me, and it's what I can handle right now. So I will try to work in a little more so that it's not just show stuff. It's also what happens here in this magic room where we get ready for the show.
I like it. I'll be excited to see all that too. Another one that I wanted to pull from our Facebook page from Art.
Okay.
And I thought this was a very interesting question. Should schools and professional leagues teach their players to be role models? Or is it only job is their only job just to be athletes?
And remind me how he said the question. He said schools, right?
Should schools and professional leagues teach their players to be
professional
role
leagues.
models, or is the only job here to be the athlete?
Well, I don't believe that's a policy that could be universally implemented. There's no way the NFL, while it does have a behavioral clause in its bylaws as well as in all the contracts that athletes sign. I'm just using the NFL, but the NBA's got one, the NHL's got one. A lot of these contracts that athletes sign do have a behavioral clause where if they violate it, and sometimes it's even outlined, whether it's illegal drugs, whether it's, getting arrested, whatever it happens to be, these behavioral clauses will actually kick in if an athlete gets in trouble. And in some cases, the contract can be voided or money can be withheld from that athlete. But I don't think that you can stipulate a morality clause, if you will. Now, if it's about just your behavior, embarrassing your team or causing undue distraction, headlines for all the wrong reasons. Well, yeah, there are employers who can say, hey, you're not worth it. I'm going to fire you based on this behavior. But to try to mandate morality through one particular lens and say, here's how you need to act, here's how you need to comport yourself, here's how you need to be a role model to those who are coming up behind you. I don't think that's possible, because to be honest, if I ask you what it means to be a role model, you're going to have one definition that may vary from my definition. And so much of that goes back to our values and our morals and our standards, and maybe how we were taught, how we weren't taught, how we grew up, what our parents were like or our family life was like. But I think for me, as much as I love college sports, and as much as I'm having a hard time with them becoming more like the pros, I do think that there's more of the teachable moments at that level, whether you're talking about high school or college. Very often those coaches, while they may not always be father figures or moms who step in, they can often have such a huge impact on the development of their athletes. So whether it's a coach who cares more about you as a human and training you to be a future, man or woman that can keep a good job and be a good parent or spouse. I mean, I love that at the college level, often you have relationships between coaches and athletes that are much more parental at times, or that can be, a special friend or a guide or someone who really taught much more about life than he or she did about the particular sport. I feel like once you get to the pros, that's a job. And if those athletes choose to have charitable organizations and give back, or if they choose to, use their platform in a way that impacts people. So I'll just use Caitlin Clark as an example, even Steph Curry, because I was talking about both of them on Tuesday's show. They each choose, and they're only two examples. There are many examples. They each choose to stop and take pictures and sign autographs, and to try to give this special moment to a fan of theirs, because they know it can really make such a huge difference. The way that they try to interact with fans, I think, is really special. Again, these are just two examples. You see it in every sport. Guys and gals who will take time to sign autographs, pose for pictures, who will throw their equipment into the stands after. I worked in tennis for years, and I would see this a lot with the athletes as they were walking off the court. Those moments can have such a huge impact on a fan. Those interactions are ones that fans, whether adults or kids, may remember for years. So whether an athlete chooses to use his or her platform for good, or to impact people for good, or to connect with people, their money, how do you use that? That's really up to those professional athletes. I don't think that should be mandated. I don't think you should have to tell a pro athlete, or should be able to tell a man or woman who's making money with his or her skills, that they need to be role models. But I think at the college level, or even the high school level, where as young people, you're still learning how to navigate this big bad world, and you're still learning about the impact that you can have. I'll go back to early in my career, one quick moment, and it really stuck with me. So I determined that I needed to respond differently in those moments where a young person, sometimes an adult, would ask me for an autograph. And because of my own insecurities and not seeing myself as a celebrity or someone famous, oh my gosh, those I break out in hives with those terms. But I laughed the first time it ever happened. A young kid at a high school basketball tournament at the Big House in Oklahoma. So this goes back to my mid-20s. A kid came up to me because he had listened to me on the radio call basketball games, and he asked me for my autograph, and I laughed. And another older, wiser broadcaster said to me, "What's the big deal? Just do it." That kid may remember that moment forever. And so I did, at that time, turn around and say, "Hey, yeah, I'll give you an autograph." And, I'll do that for other people who ask me, even though I don't understand why you would want my autograph. But I think if we take responsibility and understand what those moments of interaction, those quick connections can do and what they can mean for other people, yeah, there are teachable moments. Sportsmanship, caring more about people than you do about winning or losing. Those are all lessons that can be taught in high school and college, and I think then can be carried on to the pros. But I don't think you can mandate morality, and I don't think you can define it in a way that applies to everyone. That was a really long answer, Zach.
I know, but I think it was a really good answer.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. That was a really good question, actually. So thank you for all of your questions. We'll do this every week, and I love that we're getting more traffic now. People are remembering, hey, this is how it's done, or we're training you, to know that we've got Ask Amy Anything on this middle show of the work week. So thank you for finding us on social. Thank you for sending your questions for Zach so that he has many to choose from and he can't ask them all. I do always go back on social and answer a few of them if it doesn't take too long. And man, our live chat is blowing up. That's fun. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. The Hump Day edition of All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us in our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
Man, Zach, you have knocked it out of the park with some of this new music. As much as I wish that we could be playing Dolly Parton tunes on this edition of the show, because of copyright issues, and we don't want to tangle with those. If other shows want to do it and get knocked off, well, that'd be fine. But YouTube does police and does monitor. In some cases, they'll even take down, so not on the live stream, of course, but when the clips are packaged and are housed on YouTube, they'll even take down a particular clip or a video if they believe it violates copyright laws. And so we don't want to run into any of that. And AI suggested to my boss, Corey, that we could cover a song ourselves here on the show, which is why producer Zach had the suggestion that he could be singing. I don't think either one of us needs to veer into that lane where we're singing, but definitely appreciate that so many of you, and I'm seeing it on my social media as well, have your own Dolly Parton memories or stories. A friend of mine, her name is Erin, and we're personal friends, but also she responded to me on social saying that not only was she stunned by the news, but that her very first concert was a Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers concert. That to me sounds like a concert that we need in heaven. And now that both of them are gone, man, it really tugs at my heart because going back to my days, as I said, as a kid, Kenny Rogers was really the first artist that I was familiar with and that I really enjoyed. And because we always listened to him on our long road trips, our car rides, I pretty much could sing every single song of his from, whatever albums he had out at the time. And he did concerts and duets with Dolly Parton, and I became familiar with her that way. And so I do appreciate that some of you are sharing about Dolly yourself. Let's see. I found there was one on our live stream. Oh yeah. This one is a little bit farther up the stream, goes back to about 45 minutes ago, Zach. But he admits, or she admits, I always love her Christmas songs, especially her and Kenny's Angel when she was here, and definitely one now for sure. Yeah, universal icon, whether or not you were a country music fan. I mean, the fact that she would do collaborations with Motley Crue and Brad Paisley and Zach Williams, and of course, some of the more iconic duet partners she had, like Kenny Rogers, Vince Gill. She sang her version of I Will Always Love You with Vince Gill. So yeah, the various ways that she impacted people. I saw an interview in which she said she wanted to be remembered as a songwriter. She wanted to be remembered because that was really where she was most prolific, as much as she had a recording career. And we know the songs like Jolene and 9 to 5 and Coat of Many Colors. I could go on and on. I Will Always Love You. That was her song. But as much as we know her for her performances, she wanted to be known as a songwriter. And that she felt like was her special gift. And so she sang songs, yes, but she wrote many more. Then she had Dollywood, and she had all the humanitarian projects and various ways that she impacted people, like her literary project for kids' books online where they were free. And I believe it was Yvonne who reminded me that she also donated $1 million to vaccine research and to get the vaccine out to people during 2020 when people desperately needed it. Thank you, Yvonne. I appreciate that. Yeah, she was a humanitarian with a giant heart. And as opposed to being a hoarder or someone who was stingy because of her past growing up dirt poor without electricity or running water, instead, she was determined to try to make sure that people didn't ever have to live through those same circumstances. I also do remember that and there were some natural disasters, some rain, some flooding in Tennessee, that she also donated millions to be able to help people who'd been displaced from their homes or who were having to pick up and start over, and having to make repairs and try to fix their property because of what was devastating flooding in Tennessee going back a few years ago. So she was always ready to put her money where her mouth was. I even came across a video where she thanked Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. So this would have been much more recent for the money that they donated to her literacy project and the books that she would make available online. And she recorded a special video for them, a thank you, in which at the end she said, I will always love you. So she had a ready smile and a quick wit. She was funny as heck. Even sometimes I remember I would cringe as a young person, like, oh my gosh, I would never say that. But she did not take herself too seriously. And she was willing to help and to step in and to be generous, either front and center because she was a performer or behind the scenes, and spent 56 years with her husband. And actually, this is a part of her story that speaks to me because her husband was not interested in being a public figure. Her husband very rarely was out on stage or even in photos with her. He was notoriously private and kept his life private. So she did as well. And so some people ask me all the time, can we see a picture of your husband? I don't know why that's important. He is drop dead gorgeous, of course. So handsome, as I call him, my handsome hubs all the time. But we've chosen for privacy purposes and to protect his family and his mom and just some of the various ways that, facial recognition works, or even, hey, you can search online and find an address. We just want to have some layers of privacy. And so we've chosen not to put photos of the two of us up on social media. We'll do the same thing when we adopt. We will not put pictures up, at least of our child's face, because we don't think that that's necessary. And I know it's all access so often when it comes to athletes and celebrities and public figures. But I appreciate that there was a part of her life and a person in her life that was very special that she chose to keep private, to respect his wishes and to respect him, but also because she wanted to have that part of her life separate. So there is a million ways that we can admire and be inspired by Dolly Parton. Music was just one of them. And man, really rocked our society yesterday to find out that she had passed away. So thinking about her and certainly thinking about the impact that she had on so many people, but also the fact that it was universal. We're divided across and along so many different lines in the United States, but Dolly Parton was able to cross all of those. Glad to have you with us on this edition of the show. It's the middle show of the work week. It's your hump day, whether you're listening in the middle of the day or whether you're listening later or overnight on demand with our podcast from all the various podcast platforms. We're just so glad to connect with you. Find us on social media and join us again on Thursday. All In with Amy Lawrence here on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network. Boom!